regularly scheduled McMinnville City Council Tuesday, July 28th, and it's a little after 7 o'clock right now. I will turn it over to Claudia to poll the council for attendance.
Councilor Drapkin?
Here.
Councilor Garvin?
Here.
Councilor Geary?
Here.
Councilor Stassen?
Here.
Councilor Peralta?
Here.
Council President Minke?
Here.
And Mayor Hill?
Here. Thank you all. It's good to see you and those that are on the line with us. Our first order of business this evening is a proclamation, and we have in front of us a proclamation for National Healthcare Week. On the line with us this evening, we've got Serena Cruz, Executive Director of Virginia Garcia Memorial Foundation. And so we welcome you. I am going to read a proclamation, and then we'll have a little dialogue. National Health Center Week Proclamation. Whereas for over 45 years, Virginia Garcia Memorial Health Center, part of a nationwide network of community health centers, has provided high quality, affordable, comprehensive primary and preventative health care to our county's underserved, our country's underserved communities, delivering value to and having a significant impact on the region's healthcare system. And whereas healthcare centers like Virginia Garcia are a critical element of the health system, serving both rural and urban communities, and often providing the only accessible and dependable source of primary care in their communities. And whereas every day Virginia Garcia develops new approaches to integrating a wide range of services beyond primary care, including oral health, vision, behavioral health, and pharmacy services to meet the needs and challenges of our diverse community. And whereas the health center model of Virginia Garcia continues to prove an effective means of overcoming barriers to healthcare access, including geography, income, insurance status, improving healthcare outcomes, and reducing healthcare systems cost. Whereas health centers like Virginia Garcia reduce overall cost of care by helping manage patient chronic conditions, keeping them out of costlier healthcare settings like hospital emergency rooms. And whereas the healthcare centers like Virginia Garcia are on the front line of emerging healthcare crisis, providing access to care of our nation's veterans, addressing the opioid epidemic, and responding to public health threats, including the COVID-19. And whereas Virginia Garcia Memorial Health Center provides primary and dental care for 1 in 9 residents of Yamhill County through their clinics, mobile outreach, and more. And whereas right here in our city of McMinnville is home to McMinnville Primary Care and Dental Clinics, providing primary, dental, pharmaceutical, healthcare services to thousands in our community and employs over 60 people. And whereas National Healthcare Week offers us the opportunity to celebrate Virginia Garcia's delivery sites, their dedicated staff, board members, patients, and all those responsible for their continued success and growth since Virginia Garcia opened their doors more than 45 years ago. Now, therefore, I, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the City of McMinnville, do hereby proclaim August 9th through 15th, 2020 to be National Healthcare Week. I encourage all residents to learn more about their local community health care and take part in this week by following them on social media, lending your voice in advocacy, and if possible, by donating to their work. In witness thereof, I have herefore set my hand and caused this official seal of the City of McMinnville to be affixed this, the 28th day of July, 2020, signed Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the City of McMinnville. Serena, we recognize the good work your agency does. go ahead and you can address the council, and we will get a copy of the proclamation over to you so that you will have that in hand.
Thank you so very much, Mayor Hill and councilors. I really appreciate this opportunity to join you tonight. As Mayor Hill said, I am Serena Cruz, the Executive Director of the Virginia Garcia Memorial Foundation. And on behalf of the 600 individuals that work at Virginia Garcia, we thank you for proclaiming August 9th through 15th as National Health Center Week. Our work serving 52,000 people each year throughout Washington and Yamhill counties has never been more important as we continue to strive to meet the demands of our communities during this COVID-19 crisis. I am so proud of the work that my colleagues do every day. The care that we and every other community health center in our country provide is truly extraordinary. From addressing barriers that keep our communities healthy, from being healthy, and advocating on behalf of our patients. We really love being a part of McMinnville's community, and we are just grateful to you for all that you do to make this such a wonderful place for folks to live, work, and play.
Serena, that thank you goes back to you for all that you do, serving those that have healthcare needs that are underserved, and it's a real gem, and I hear great things of your service and your customer service, people wanting to come back. So again, we recognize you this evening. We'll get that proclamation over to you and continue your great work.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And if you or any of members of the council would ever like a tour, I would be so very happy to meet you at the clinic and give you a tour of our comprehensive primary and dental clinic right here in the heart of McMinnville.
Thank you. That now takes us to our comments from citizens, and anyone in our audience that would like to provide comments on any topic other than a matter in litigation, a quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter scheduled for a public hearing at some future date. Our citizens will have a limit of 3 minutes to share their thoughts, and if there's one that would like to speak, hopefully they've had an opportunity to get a hold of our city recorder, Claudia. Claudia, do you have anyone that has contacted you to speak this evening?
No, Mayor.
So I'll just call out, is there anyone on the line that would like to address the council this evening? Just hit the raise your hand function on Zoom. I'll ask you, Claudia, again. You don't see anything?
No, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We now have advice and information, and so reports from councilors on their committee and board assignments. As I asked last time that we met, again, I would ask you just to report only on committee and board assignments, and if you could limit your comments to 3 minutes and be prepared. And so what I'll go ahead and do is I'm just going to go across the top. So I'll start with Kelly. Any reporting this evening?
Yes, briefly. Several different meetings in the last few weeks. Start with Visit McMinnville. Money's tight. June occupancy rates are averaging about 30% of normal. Next month, August is critical for Visit McMinnville. Usually leisure travel will pick up during that time, but they've been having cancellations from reservations that were made earlier in the spring and summer for the fall. And so they're not sure how the fall will turn out. However, we are seeing some out-of-state travel, and Willamette Valley has the highest occupancy rate in the state, even at 30%. This speaks well of Visit McMinnville. They were very happy with the contract acceptance from the council. The board is looking for DEI training from Willamette Valley Visitors Association, and Kittry will be joining the DEI task force. McMinnville was listed as one of 20 most scenic towns in the Reader's Digest this last month. There's a planning template for Visit McMinnville that indicates moving into recovery phase cautiously. They're taking care not to conflict with the state's crossing county boundaries and, the daily changes that come with COVID with the state. If they have to pull back on anything, it will be marketing, and they do have alternate plans depending on the revenue. And just another thing on Visit McMinnville, if you notice as you walk down 3rd Street, there's really pretty colored stencils on the sidewalks now that are showing you 6 feet apart. That was done by a local body artist who won a national contest, and they're quite colorful and fun to look at. I attended a middle modern housing webinar presented by Portland and Eugene builders. It was a good discussion of positives and negatives of our new housing products, and I have a summary if anyone is interested. I'll be happy to mail it to them. YCAP meeting today, the moteling project has helped 55 households as of today. Of these, 65% have been successfully housed. 6 more are in process when housing becomes available. A very successful program, thanks to YCAP, the city, and Remy for her work on this. July alone, the client services team distributed $326,675 in COVID rental relief funds to households all over Yamhill County. These funds go to households behind in rent and facing future eviction. Due to the impacts of COVID-19, this will hopefully continue through the winter. A new grant was awarded from OHA. This grant will function in addition to COVID-19 outreach to people in Yamhill County who are low income and experiencing homelessness. Heather and I met on yesterday on a phone call and discussed briefly the housing equity discussion and talking points for it, which we'll start talking about, I think, on this Wednesday meeting. That's all I got.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's go for Remy.
Really not that much to add, Mr. Mayor. I was going to say the Affordable Housing Task Force meeting is tomorrow at 10 a.m. And as Kelly already mentioned, we are discussing housing equity, and the subcommittee that has come up in here a few times is reporting back, and also small updates on House Bill 4212 and potentials from that bill.
Thank you, Councilor. Zach, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be brief, don't have a ton. Landscape Review Committee are meeting next week. They're taking kind of a poll of the committee members this week and looking at our next meeting will be a review of the Landscape Review Code as requested. So that's going to be a good meaty meeting, and looking forward to that. So hopefully we can start bringing some things together. McMinnville Community Media had a board meeting on the 20th, and so we got a good little time until the next one. Nothing crazy. They put together a cool video for MHS graduation, and you want to check out. It's got some neat pieces. The way they pulled it together. MacPack is the only other thing I've got, and the upcoming meeting. I think those are the first Thursdays of the month. So the first Thursday in August, we'll have our next meeting, and we'll be talking about space. What do we need? How big do we need? What pieces do we need? Kind of putting the whole Lego infrastructure piece together of what that facility needs to and should be. So that should be a great discussion. In fact, if we need more time, we're on a monthly schedule. We may look at doing a secondary meeting if we need more time to talk. But so that should be a robust discussion on the MacPack for sure. And that's my update for today.
Thank you, Councilor. Wendy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have much to report. The MURAC meeting is always the first Wednesday of every month, so we should be having on August 5th, I think is the date for the first Wednesday of August, so I'll have more to report after that. And we should be looking at reviving or revisiting level 10 meetings next month. I think we'll be seeing the results of the interviews this week, and so we're going to be meeting about that, and so expect to see that coming soon. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Councilor. Sal?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last meeting, the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments has formalized the process for establishing the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance. which is going to be providing homeless services, including affordable housing, shelter, transitional housing, and permanent housing. They've got now intergovernmental agreements with Polk County, Marion County, Salem, Independence, Monmouth, Kaiser, the tribes of Grand Ronde, and the Salem Kaiser School District. And the Council of Governments is sending out ads next week for the executive director position. That's my report.
Thank you, Councilor. Adam?
No ICOM meeting for the month of July. Right now, today was the first day that Century West Engineering started doing some repave work at the airport. It was scheduled for last week, but they got tied up at Astoria and Scappoose airports. So they'll be out there today, tomorrow, Thursday and Friday. They should be wrapped up by the end of the week if all goes well. And looks like the weather will hold up for that. So exciting to get that fixed up out there and get the taxiways whipped back into shape to some extent. So, and that's all at zero cost to the city.
Thank you, Councilor. Let me just report on a couple of things I've been involved in. Last week we had McMinnville Water and Light Commission meeting. We talked about cyber risk, renewing a contract for insurance purposes, much like we've done at the city. Like tonight, we did a COVID update and extension of our emergency declaration. We requested and are setting a public hearing for an increase in water rates, and that's to be set for September 15th, 2020 at 5:30. We had a report of the closeout on the Lafayette finished water transmission main project. We came in under budget and we came in on time, so we celebrated that. And then we had an intergovernmental agreement with ODOT on work that's being done out at McDougal Corner, and they're doing the paving on 99, and we need to do water manhole covers, and we're going to incorporate that with ODOT. Jeff and I meet twice a month with the hospital, and our report is our hospital is in great shape. We have PPE, we have significant supplies there, we have capacity, they're doing surgeries back on a normal basis. Laura reminded us of the flu season that's coming up in the fall, and shared that typically October to May is the flu season. Last year we were late in December, and she said that pharmacies are probably going to be pushing flu shots early this year. And remember, if you get a shot in September, it may not be enacted for the flu season if it goes into December. So you gotta be very cautious there. She reported to us that they've only had 4 cases of COVID in the hospital over the last 5 months. So that just gives you a sense. But I did do and pulled up the Oregon Health Agency's report today, and sadly, the 295th COVID death was a 26-year-old man in Yamhill County who died in his residence on July 10th. The death certificate listed COVID-19 disease or SARS-CoV-2 as a cause of death or as a significant condition that contributed to his death. We don't know what city that is in, and that was just reported today. 2 other items that I'll talk about. The McMinnville leadership, we meet twice a month, and that's a good dialogue with the leaders of our community. And the Yamhill County leadership meets twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays, where we report out. And then today, as you all are aware, the governor's address dealt with closures of school and set some parameters around schooling as we move into the fall. And at this point, we only have 1 county that's in a position to have in-person school. And so you can look all that up, but I just wanted to share that with you. And then I'm going to just cue Heather up when she makes her report. If she can, we know about the Business Oregon, but I'll let her talk to us about that. So, Kelly, you're muted.
One more thing, I just wanted to say League of Oregon City, it's 2 days this year on Zoom, and they've got a nice counselor workshop. It's only $85 for the 2 days. You can attend whatever you want to on Zoom. I highly recommend everybody sign up for it. It's just a good deal, and it's cheap for the city too.
And I'll just add to that, I've been on the steering committee for the conference, and great, we're going to have great speakers, and I'm very excited about that conference. Okay, counselors, thank you for your concise and well-prepared reports. That's the way we need to be doing it. Department heads, I'm just going to go across then, and Heather, I have you first.
So, Mayor and Council, I guess I'll respond to the mayor's queuing. We applied for funds from Business Oregon for emergency business assistance grants. We learned the last week that we received those, what we requested, which was $100,000. The city needs to match that $100,000, so we'll have a total funding pool of $200,000. We will be bringing the grant contract to you on August 11th for execution. And then on August 12th, we'll start marketing the program. We have 45 days in which to market, solicit, vet, and disperse the funds. So it will be a very, very quick process. We are using the Economic Vitality Leadership Council to do the process in terms of the vetting and disbursement of the funds, but we'll bring more details to you on August 11th and launch our marketing at that time. And this was an effort amongst the Stable Table group. We've all been working together to apply for and put these funding packages together. So it's great. We're able to bring $200,000 in funds for emergency business assistance to businesses. And this is for businesses that were not able to access the federal funding program, so the PPP program and the EIDL program. And we're especially targeting women and minority-owned businesses and sole proprietors as well.
So it's really going to have an impact, I think, in the community. So congrats to everyone that was involved in that. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Chief Scales?
Hey, nothing, Mayor. Thank you for asking them.
Okay. Jennifer, Finance?
Good evening, everyone. I just have a couple of things to mention. Next Wednesday morning, we'll be having the second meeting of the Audit Committee discussing the reserves. So we really look forward to continuing that conversation. And just in finance, we're working away in terms of closing the year and getting started on our audit process, and remote court continues to roll along and do just a fabulous job for the community in a safe way. So that's my report.
Thank you, Jennifer. Let's go to Susan.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of things from me. We are wrapping up Parks and Rec Month in the next few days, and so I hope everybody that participated in that had a great time. We also have about 2.5 weeks of STARS left. We have about 25 kids per week in that program, and even with the transition of masks and the kids having to wear masks last Friday, it's going pretty well. We have had to cancel a couple of upcoming camps due to COVID concerns and low registration, we suspect because of COVID. And we are continuing on the path of the aquatic center programs reopening in a safe way and are having some success there. And then given the school district information and what we're seeing, I just wanted to let you all know that Jeff and I have an upcoming meeting with Dr. Russell and Courtney Farua this Friday to talk about what fall might look like in our partnership and related to KOB and the other programs that we run in partnership with the school district. So we'll be updating you on that as we go through those conversations.
Thank you, Susan. Scott?
Nothing for the council tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And I see that Debbie's on maybe for the fire department.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry. I don't know that we have much of an update other than working on Title 15 coming up. But as far as the fire department from last month, I don't think we have an update.
Thank you so very much. Claudia, do we have anyone in the civic hall that's a department head or executive team member?
Nope, just Scott and I. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. And then Jeff, anything from you for this evening?
Just briefly, Mayor, in my long, unsuccessful quest to practice work-life balance, I'm going to take another shot at it. I've got a few days in the next couple of weeks with relatively few meetings. I'm planning to take this Thursday afternoon and next Friday, and this Friday morning off. I may take some time off next week. I'm going to see how the week evolves. Right now, it looks like Thursday and or Friday might be a day off, and I'll let you know that via email. That's all I have for you tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Well deserved. Let's take us then to the consent agenda tonight. We have two items on that. The minutes from the December 10th, 2019 City Council work session and regular City Council meetings, and the minutes from January the 14th, 2020. We also have resolution number 2020-48, which is extending the city's declaration of state of emergency. And so is there any councilor that would like to have an item removed off the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay. The consent agenda has been moved by Zach and seconded by Wendy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any in opposition, please say nay. The consent agenda this evening passes unanimously 6-0. This evening, that takes us to our ordinances, and we're considering the second reading of Ordinance 5093. Does anyone object to having that ordinance read by title only? If not, Jeff, if you could read ordinance number 5093 by title only.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This is the second reading of ordinance number 5093, an ordinance repealing and replacing Title 15 of the McMinnville City Code, specific to buildings and construction, amending Section 2.50.510, specific to code compliance applicability, and Sections 8.10.250, health and safety, motor vehicles, and Section 8.10.035, health and safety storage.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to call on Planning Director Heather Richards to present this, and then we'll have council discussion. Heather?
Yeah, so good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I don't have a formal presentation for you because we went through what these code amendments, what they do and don't do at your last meeting. However, after the last meeting, there was an article that ran in the paper that generated a lot of the social media discussion and comments with concerns about some aspects of the code. So I wanted to address those really quickly. One of the concerns that was rising up on social media was a misunderstanding in terms of the right of entry that's in the code. So right now, the right of entry is for the building official to be able to access into a building when a building could be constructed without permits and there's life safety issues. They do need to contact the property owner first before entering the building. So there was a misunderstanding that there was no contact with the property owner. There was also a misunderstanding that code compliance officers had right of entry onto private property, which this code does not do. Code compliance officers are only able to view a property from the public right of way or gain entry on a property if invited by the property owner or through a court administrative warrant. So this does not provide that provision. It's really a life safety issue for the building official and the fire marshal. The fire marshal's authority is in the fire code by the state anyways. The other two issues that came up were relative to the public nuisance code, which is chapter 8. And again, I think there was some misunderstandings there when there was discussion about discarded motor vehicles and the ability to use a car cover as an added tool of screening. The conversation really sort of revolved around discarded motor vehicles and what are they and how does the code address them. And so I weighed in on some of the conversations and just said, you know, what this code is doing is it's putting a tool in the toolbox in terms of what a property owner can do to screen these discarded motor vehicles on their property. We do get a lot of complaints about discarded motor vehicles from neighboring property owners. And working through a recent one, they also pointed out some other vehicles around town that they felt fell under this category as well, but they were covered with car covers. And they're typically like your older vehicles that people are working on, you know, restoring an antique vehicle or something like that. So we wanted to make sure that that was a tool that people could use to screen their discarded motor vehicles. And so that's just a suggestion to add that. However, after going through the dialogue and rereading through the code, I do have one amendment I'd like to recommend. And this is on page 89 of your packet, page 27 of 29 in the ordinance. But it says under motor vehicles 8.10.250, subsection A, subsection 2, it says in a backyard of a residential property, if the discarded motor vehicle, and it talks about how it needs to be screened. And that would only allow discarded motor vehicles in a backyard. I spoke with Nick and Claudia this evening and said, I really think that that should be in a yard, and to delete back from that, because there are people who have their antique roadster or something like that in their side yard that they're working on with a car cover, or in their front yard adjacent to their driveway. So we thought that if we struck the language back from there, only allowing it in the backyard, but still providing that it has to be screened by something, car cover or a side obscuring fence, that it shouldn't be an issue for both those who have discarded motor vehicles and are screening them, and neighbors of properties like that. So that's a recommendation for amendment. And then there was some confusion about the storage provisions that was added to the code, which is 8.10.305. In the existing code, we have provisions for junk and debris, which says that properties cannot accumulate junk and debris that's not screened from the public view. And we get a lot of phone calls about that from neighboring properties. And it's becomes a discretionary decision-making process as to what, you know, actually is defined as junk and debris. We use the definition that's recommended by the state because it is a very legal process sometimes. But we decided that adding this section on storage made it a little bit clearer as to when to be considered junk and debris, what you can store in your front yard, to make it a little bit clearer. So things such as cut wood and lawn ornaments and, you know, lawn furniture and things like that, all that is not considered junk and debris and would be allowed under the code. And this just clarifies that. It makes it easier for both the neighboring property as well as our code compliance officers to work through it. So that's the intention of those changes. And from what I could tell in the social media groups, those were where the concerns mostly laid.
Okay. Thank you for that report, Heather. I'll turn it over to the council to have a discussion. And so anyone on the council would like to weigh in on any aspect of the code amendments? Kelly first.
I'm just wondering how we change, or how we handle this amendment that Heather was suggesting. Do we have to do that separately, or can it be incorporated into a motion tonight, or what?
Jeff, if you don't mind, my belief is that your motion for a second reading can be as amended.
That's what I have down on my script that I've written.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Heather, oh, sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead, Sal.
Oh, thank you. Heather, I had a couple of questions, but I'm having a hard time identifying the spot where it is, where I can, in the code, but The question that I have relates to when we have a non-compliant person in terms of trying to issue a corrective action. Which section of the, what's the number for that? Because I had it and then I just lost it right before.
So that's that was an attachment to the staff report. It's chapter 2.50 that talks about the process for notifying. And that's in the code and doesn't have proposed code amendments tonight. But what we do as a process is we do a courtesy letter saying that we've received a complaint. This is what the complaint is. You have the opportunity to prove it's not non-compliant, or we will investigate it. If we investigate it, then per the code, we then send what's called a notice of code violation. And we send that via snail mail and certified mail, and we post the property as well.
Thank you for that. So my questions are, in the last year, we've had a couple of cases that I wonder if those would fall in under the framework of this. The first question is, currently code changes that are on an older building, say, let's take the Maryland Works building that was transacted this past year. Right now, getting to compliance with the code is triggered when there's a change in use. Is that correct? So
yes, and Stuart Ramsey and Deborah McDermott are on the meeting, so I'd rather have them who are the experts in this matter, weigh in on that.
Okay, so the question that I want to ask for them is, do any of the changes that we're making today change the practice of when a code requirement is triggered? Meaning that if right now it happens when there's a change in use, is anything that we're passing today going to change that policy? So if in the course of researching a building, Stuart finds some information that shows a non-compliance, under the current framework, my understanding is the change of use would be what triggers the owner having to make changes. My question is, under this new framework, would that change?
The answer is no, there would be no change.
Okay, thank you for that. And then the other question that I had related to, we had a case this past year that took the code compliance officers several months to try and resolve because the person was very non-compliant. And my recollection was that the county sheriff, unrelated to our code enforcement action, eventually had to raid the building with the assistance of the Oregon State Police. Would the changes that we're making have any effect on how that particular case was enforced?
No, so the changes tonight would not have effect on that. That particular case straddled the changes we made previously. So it came in as a code enforcement complaint when we were still in the court process. And then we went through a process of changing the code to allow this administrative process. So it lagged several months in that court process. Then when it changed to administrative, the code compliance officer started working on the notification. They refused to abate it, so then we had to go to the court for the abatement. In the process of going to the court for the abatement, we learned about the other law enforcement activities that were underway as well. And so the code compliance officers then started working with the law enforcement teams in terms of a timing for that.
Yeah.
So tonight's changes wouldn't impact that. That was impacted by the previous package of changes.
Thank you. That was a question that came up this week, and I appreciate that clarification, and I'll be voting in support of this measure.
Any other discussion among the councilors? Zach?
Thank you. I guess PDF page 94, our packet page 94, I guess. Chapter 2.50, code compliance, 2.50.010, applicability of chapter A3 is my question. And I'm sure you guys all have the page open, so I'll continue to stall until it looks like Heather's got it open. But
Trying to get
staring at the computer, all right. I'm just going to watch Larry Bird shoot that jumper for the 40th time behind you.
I know. Nice, right?
No.
That's a signed print, by the way.
Oh. To Heather, staying cool, Larry Bird. All chapters of Title 17 of this code, zoning and all ordinances adopted pursuant to Title 17. Is that, am I reading that right? That loops everything in the zoning code into the purview of code compliance and your code compliance officers?
Yes, which will be your next ordinance you're looking at this evening.
Right, and so if there's an airport being built somewhere that is not in an airport approved zone, that'll fall into here. If there's a change in windows on an A resource in some house, that'll fall into here by default. And if, you know, someone's putting siding on a building in the Alpine District or Gateway District, and that gets caught, then that'll go into this process. Is that correct?
Yes.
All of those things that are just sort of general zoning things.
Yes.
Okay. That puts it through this code compliance that we've perfected. Yes. That, and then that was my big picture question. And then just sort of if it's not applicable to this discussion, we can boot it out. But does our code or does our code enforcement talk about sound? And what I'm specifically asking is sound in those little, you know, those sounds that only kids can hear evidently or something. I can't hear them. I'm old enough that I don't hear those things, but you hear them or you supposedly hear them by the high school where you don't want the kids to stand and hang out and throw Cheeto wrappers in your yard. And so you have that loud piercing sound that only kids can hear. Do you know what I'm talking about? Or am I crazy? Is that like if you pee in the pool, it turns purple?
It's just dogs.
Is it? Okay, then if I'm crazy, then that's fine.
I'm sure there are sounds that teenagers can hear that I can't hear because I'm learning there's all sorts of things teenagers do that I am not aware of. But I have two teenagers at home. But then there is a noise section to our city code. It's mostly based on decibel levels of sound.
I don't have a party at midnight or whatever. Yeah, I just was wondering, and that either isn't a thing or that is a thing, and I'm not describing it very well, but that's probably neither here nor there for what we're talking about tonight, but I just thought of it, so. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Is it the thing that says their full name over and over again really sharply?
I like the libraries is just really loud classical music. I sometimes just go there to hang out. The name one, that's a good idea.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a little bit for Heather. Storage, the 350 part of that new code. You mentioned that we already have some code in there that can take care of the majority of that. So I was just curious why we need to add that in there when it seems like
we have in the code a section that talks about junk and debris, and when you're referencing take care of that, there's two ways to view that. One being the person who got the complaint against them and feels that the code is too rigorous, and the person who's complaining and feels the code is not rigorous enough, right? In our junk and debris chapter, it talks about that you cannot, as a private property owner, accumulate junk and debris in the public view. So front yard, side yard, if you can see it from the street. What this section does is it takes away some of the ambiguity as to what is junk and debris for both the person who's complaining and the person who's received the complaint and the code compliance officer who's usually trying to mitigate between these two neighbors who have different standards of what they feel should be visible in the yards. So what this storage section does is it says what you can store in your yards, visible from the public view. Does that help answer your question, madam?
Yeah, I've looked at some other cities, Salem being one, and they have the outside storage prohibited, which is pretty much word for word what this section is for that you proposed, and then they also have a keeping junk prohibited section, which haven't found that part of the code in ours that you just cited, but I'm thinking that's probably what you're talking about.
Probably similar as well. So most cities in Oregon go by this model city code for public nuisances. And when we do research, look at what other cities are doing, it's ironic because we're finding the same language in all of them. I will look for, I had it up just a few minutes ago. What section of, so junk and debris in our code, Councilor Garvin, is 8.10.190. It's not in the staff report and ordinance because there's no amendments proposed for it. But it talks about that a person in charge of a premises must not permit, allow, or cause to exist any accumulation of debris, junk, or garbage on the premises.
This ordinance, I'd be voting no. The rest of the code package, I'm in full support of.
And I'm sorry, you cut out on the section that you weren't supportive of. I don't know if others heard it clearly.
The 350 section, I just think it's too overreaching. It makes our code compliance officers like HOA officers, and I don't think we as a city should be getting that far into it. I also think that it leaves too much up to code compliance officer, and you know that Nick and Claudia are great, but this last code's been on the book for 42 years. So how's the code compliance officer, how heavy-handed are they going to be 30 years from now when all of us are off the dais and the executive team's moved on? So from a policy standpoint, I just think it's too heavy-handed for the citizens at large.
Okay, so it's 305, just for the record. And what it does is it clarifies things for the code compliance officer in terms of what isn't junk and debris. So the most important section is section B.
Yeah, so the 250, I think is great. I think there's definitely use for that in the city. It is the 035 that I just can't, or 350 that I just can't get behind.
Can I say something? They describe what it's definitely not, but it's not an all-inclusive thing. Is that correct? In other words, depending on the situation, there might be other things that would not be, depending on the negotiation.
Yeah, the one piece, so it's very clear and so 8.10.305, I just want to clarify for the record, the section we're talking about, storage, says two things. One, it says stuff in your yard needs to be screened from the public view. Those things that don't need to be screened from the public view, so this is where it says these things are not debris or junk, is firewood that is stacked and usable, that's defined. Construction material that's temporarily stored and is stored in a manner to protect its utility, that's defined. And actually, we just went through the code compliance case with this very issue with construction material on the property, and we couldn't define whether that was junk or debris. And then the third piece, where there is a little discretion, Councilor Menke, is all other items of personal property which are of a type, condition, or quantity consistent with normal and intended outside use. There's the discretion, right? And it says, by way of illustration, but not limitation, as used in this section, items of personal property include barbecue grills, lawn furniture, and solid waste disposable receptacles.
May I make a comment?
Go ahead, Sal.
Adam, I appreciate your comments that you're concerned about the enumeration of these. I actually feel that enumerating the list is a good idea because it reduces the risk of arbitrary enforcement, which often happens, or which happens perhaps in some communities too often. And so by making it clear that someone's not going to generate a complaint with firewood or construction material or ordinary normal materials, I think that reduces the risk of arbitrary enforcement rather than inherent.
Thank you, Sal. And I can remember a number of instances where we didn't have enough detail in our code, and it was like a nitpicky back and forth before we could enforce things, and neighbors were just outraged at how long that process took. We went to court, and this, I think, gives us a better legal platform to stand on personally. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, then what I'll do is ask for any public comment at this time. Is there any public comment? And Claudia, I'll turn to you. And if you have public comment, if you raise your hand on Zoom, and we'll follow up from there.
Mayor, it doesn't look like we have anyone for public comment.
Thank you, Claudia. Again, any further discussion among council on ordinance number 5093? Hearing none, then we have already had the first reading on ordinance number 5093, and that took place on July 14th, 2020. Are we ready for a second reading on ordinance 5093? We'll ask for a motion to approve ordinance number 5093.
I'd like to move 5093 as amended.
It's been moved by Sal and seconded by Kelly. And this also includes the amendment that was presented by Heather, correct, Heather?
Yeah, I moved it as amended, Mayor.
Thank you. So I'll turn to Jeff, if you could read ordinance 5093 for a second time.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 5093, an ordinance repealing and replacing Title 15 of the McMinnville City Code specific to buildings and construction, amending section 2.50.510 specific to code compliance applicability, and sections 8.10.250 health and safety motor vehicle, and sections 8.10.035 health and safety storage.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll call on Claudia to poll the council.
Councilor Drapkin?
Aye.
Councilor Garvin?
Nay.
Councilor Geary? Sorry, can you repeat that, Councilor Geary? I didn't get it.
Aye.
Perfect. Councilor Stassens?
Aye.
Councilor Peralta?
Aye.
And Council President Minke?
Aye.
Ordinance number 5093 is adopted by a vote of 5 in favor and 1 in opposition. Thank you. That takes us now to consider ordinance number 5094. Does any councilor object to having this ordinance read by title only? Hearing none, Jeff, could you read ordinance 5094 by title only?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a first reading of ordinance 5094, an ordinance amending section .17.03 of the McMinnville Municipal Code, zoning ordinance general provisions.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll call on Heather again to present.
Yeah, so Mayor and Councilors, this is actually housekeeping in our Chapter 7, Title 17, which is the zoning ordinance, which governs development in the city of McMinnville. We are going through all of our ordinances for the code compliance program to make them correlate with that Chapter 2.50 in terms of the administrative process. As we were discussing earlier, what this does is it ties it into that chapter. It right now in the code has a court code compliance program, which is fairly onerous for everyone involved to navigate. So we're hoping that this will be an easier process. We don't have a lot of code compliance issues that come through our zoning ordinance, but this allows us, when we do, to get into this easier process that the code compliance officers are using for both the property owner and the city. What you see here is we've done a little cleanup of the general provisions section of the code. So section 17.03 is general provisions, where we've talked about it needs to be consistent with plan and laws, that we can do conditions of approval. A lot of this is in state regs, but just like the building codes, we brought it down into the local code for transparency. I did want to point out one thing. In section 17.03.090, under violations, this is the new violation language to tie it into chapter 2.50. We brought in the section E there, so subsection A, subsection E, excuse me, where it says, notwithstanding the other remedies in this chapter, if the building official determines that any building under construction, that they can order the work halted and the building or structure vacated. We have the same language in chapter 15 that you just passed. And we feel that this would be, we wanted it in here too, just in case we need to reinforce that. I talked with legal counsel. They felt it was redundant and we didn't need it in this section as well. So our recommendation is actually to remove subsection E in section 17.03.090. But other than that, it should be pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you, Heather. I'll turn it over to council for any questions or discussion that we would have on this ordinance. I don't see any discussion. Okay, hearing none, then I will move. Are there any public comments on this ordinance?
Mayor, we have no public comments on this.
Thank you, Claudia. So I'll come back to the council and if there's any additional comments that need to be made. Okay. I will then ask for a motion to pass ordinance number 5094 to a second reading. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Remy and seconded by Adam. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Did we have one nay?
Not from me.
Okay. Motion or ordinance number 5094 passes on its first reading unanimously. So we will ask Jeff to read this ordinance again by title only.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a second reading of ordinance number 5094, an ordinance amending section 117.03 of the McMinnville Municipal Code zoning ordinance general provisions.
Thank you, Jeff. I'll ask for a motion to approve ordinance number 5094.
As moved.
With the amendment.
I don't know that this, there was no amendment to this.
Heather amended it.
Okay.
Taking
We'll
E.
take that redundancy out then.
So moved
Okay.
as amended.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved by, was it Wendy, and seconded by Kelly. I will ask the city recorder to poll the council. Claudia?
Councilor Drapkin?
Aye.
Councilor Garvin?
Aye.
Councilor Geary?
Aye.
Councilor Stassens?
Aye.
Councilor Peralta?
Aye.
Council President Menke?
Aye.
Ordinance number 5094 is adopted by a vote of 6-0. That takes care of our business this evening. Again, thank you for your preparation and for the work that went into our discussion this evening. Be safe, wear your mask, wash your hands, and we'll talk to everyone later. Thanks.